Hello, and welcome to a new episode of this JPAD Modeller tutorial series dedicated to the CAD Manager features. In this video, we will explore the parameters you can manage from the fairing sections of the CAD Manager, in order to shape wing and canard junctions with the fuselage. These are the only lifting surfaces for which you can eventually model a fairing and for which you have two distinct sections in the CAD Manager menu. Remember, in order to model a fairing, it is necessary that both the fuselage and the related lifting surfaces are actually included in the aircraft data structure and that their 3D shapes have been generated. The parameterization provided in the fairing section is general and applies both to upper and lower mounted lifting surfaces. The input parameters included in this section are all non-dimensional and allow you to easily shape a fairing from scratch. Keep in mind, in fact, that the basic aircraft data structure of JPAD Modeller presented in the tutorial series for the Input Manager does not contain any information related to the geometry of the fairings. With this parameterization, you can define the characteristics of the fairing in terms of longitudinal extension, with the root chord of the related lifting surfaces taken as the reference length for actual dimensions calculations. The width factor allows you to define the shape of the fairing along the spanwise direction. A value greater than 1.0 implies a fairing wider than the fuselage, whereas a value below 1.0 implies the opposite. The height factor defines the extension of the fairing along the vertical direction, adopting the root chord thickness as the reference length for actual dimension calculation. The height below and above reference factors allow you to manage the vertical extension of the fairing shapes inside the fuselage, thus indirectly defining the actual intersection between fairing and fuselage shapes. Finally, the fillet radius factor allows you to apply a fillet on the exposed edges of the fairing. Values closer to 1.0 imply a higher smoothness of the edges. Keep in mind that in case of problems with the sanity of one or more CAD entities for a fixed value of the fillet radius factor, this will be automatically lowered to match the highest possible smoothness of exposed edges compatible with CAD shape sanity checks. For greater clarity, let's see an example of an update of existing fairing shapes. Let's suppose that we want to increase both the frontal and rear lengths of the fairing, bringing the values of both the front and rear length factors from 0.4 and 0.55, respectively, to 0.8. Let's suppose to update the height above reference factor 2, by bringing its value from 0.1 to 0.55. All these changes will increase the extension of the visible portion of the fairing along the longitudinal direction. Then we want to also update the fillet radius factor, thus the smoothness of the exposed edges of the fairing, by bringing its value from 0.75 to 0.95. To see the effect of all these modifications, we need to press the Update button in the top toolbar, and then select the Only CAD option. The effect of these modifications will be then clearly visible in the 3D view window of the 3D Explorer. That's all for this tutorial video and for this tutorial series dedicated to the CAD Manager of JPAD Modeller. We hope to see you again in the next tutorial series dedicated to the JPAD family of tools. Thanks.